The Wholeness Network. Awaken to the reality of wholeness. Bob Burg is a sought-after speaker and award-winning author. He is an advocate, supporter, and defender of the free enterprise system, believing that the amount of money one makes is directly proportional to how many people they serve. His book series, The Go-Giver, co-authored with John David Mann, has been a huge influence here at the Wholeness Network.
We are so excited this morning to join with one of the authors of The Go-Giver. This is my marked up copy. Bob Burg, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you.
I love the principles of your book. As we've started to read it and take notes and apply it, I just can't believe how quickly my life has shifted in just a week. And so we feel so privileged to ask you some questions this morning. And these are random thoughts as I've tried to start working with the material and applying it. So they're in no particular order, but the first question is, these principles, these 5 principles, can you just integrate them all at one time, or is there a sequential order? I feel like in some ways we started at number 4, or number 1, or we've got pieces of number 3, but do you need to start at the beginning to add them all into your life, or do you just add them pieces at a time?
No, wholeness definitely comes into play here because these are applied holistically. All 5 of these principles, based on an overall premise, these 5 principles all work together. In fact, we often say that trying to apply just 1, 2, 3, or even 4 of them without all 5 really is going to take away a lot of the potential value of the entire process. So no, this is definitely a holistic type of program, if you will.
Okay, great. And one of the things I love that you talked about, or that you covered, that there are many different reasons people find jobs and find work: to survive, to save money, or to serve. And it was interesting to me that as people, whatever they chose in their business or their work, as they started applying all of these principles, it seemed like no matter what industry they were in or how they were serving, it made everything better. Like Deborah Davenport, who hated her job and wanted to quit until she started recognizing that principle of authenticity. So do you feel like people, no matter what industry or what job, or whether they feel like they're in a place they can serve or not, if they apply these principles, will it change things?
Well, I think generally speaking, we're created to want to have a purpose, to want to be involved in something bigger than ourselves, to make a difference. And we can do this in many ways, regardless of the actual job that we're doing. In Daniel Pink's magnificent book, Drive, what motivates us, he talked about the fact that just even as, let's say, as an employee, while money is certainly important because we need that for the survive part, right, and to begin to save, that really does not rank first in terms of why people have a certain job. And he based a lot of this on the work of Professors Decci and I think O'Shaughnessy. Two university professors, but he talked about that mainly what we really want is we want autonomy. Okay, we want choices. We want to be in control of our destiny, of our lives, so forth. So that's very important. Also, there is mastery. We want to be able to master a thing. We want to have excellence in what we do. And then there's also relationship. Relationship is a big driver of people. So when you're in a company where you're able to have all three, you feel as though you're part of it, right? And you feel you're trusted. You have that autonomy. You're able to master a skill. You're able to have relationships with others. You feel as though you're, I think that's what people want now as leaders, when we can give that to someone, right? Give that by helping them, by really understanding what motivates them. And of course, we learn that only through asking and listening. But when we can create that environment for others where they feel as though they really are involved in something special and have a chance to contribute, I think that just makes life, work, and everything better for everyone involved.
Mm-hmm. I love it. I loved that it was created as a parable. And I even love that you used that word, because that gives the reader an opportunity to put themselves into the book, and because it's a story, then they can see themselves within the story. And I think that was such a genius idea. That's one of my favorite parts about it. So it became less of a to-do list and more of a, like, just being part of something greater, because it was this beautiful story and so well done. I loved it.
John David Mann, my co-author, really deserves the credit for that. He's the writer of the team. I mean, I'm a how-to guy. I'm step one, step two. John is just a brilliant storyteller and writer. So I really thank him. And all credit for the readability of the story goes to John.
I'm the more how-to too. Robin's the story in our in our group.
Yeah, it's a collaboration. Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. I loved it. So many of these healing industry type people struggle with this ability to create an income off of that, and so let's talk about that for a little bit. What you said that was common. And
yeah, well, first, it's common with a lot of people, but especially within the healing arts. There seems to be a real dichotomy in people's minds. We call this the treacherous dichotomy, or the false dilemma, the unnecessary use of the word or. I either want to provide great value and service to others, or I want to make a lot of money. But now let's question our premises. Why should that be the case? Why is it one or the other? Who says? And whoever said that, who told them? Where did they learn that from? And how did that hurt? Well, life is based, and the way we live our lives is based on our belief systems. And those belief systems, how we see the world, the model from which we see the world, was really given to us before we were too young, before we were old enough, to be able to question those premises. And so, upbringing, environment, schooling, news media, television, movies, we get our messages from pretty much everywhere around us. Though by the time we're a little more than toddlers, it's pretty much etched in stone, and we tend to live our entire lives through what I call an unconscious operating system, where we think we're making all these conscious choices, but really we're making limited choices within limited frames. And the world around us has given us, when it comes to prosperity and money and things, I won't say mixed messages, I would say negative messages, right? I mean, if you really pay attention, you'll see that you would think that anyone who has done well financially did it on the backs of others, or by doing something crooked or dishonest or taking advantage. Well, it's a big world, so there's plenty of people who do bad things. But by and large, especially to the degree that you operate within a free market economy, and when I say free market, I simply mean no one is forced to do business with anyone else. People do so on their own volition. Well, why do people do business with you? Because they believe they will benefit by doing so. And that's the only reason they should do business with you or with me or from anyone else. Now, we would say that to the degree that you provide immense value to others, you have earned the right, not the entitlement, but the right to receive as well. In fact, we would say that to not receive, you're actually shutting down the flow. If you refuse to receive, you're not able to stay in business. And the people who need your help so much are not going to have access to it. But, it's a lot like breathing out and breathing in. It's not one or the other. If you're going to survive, if you're going to thrive, you can't just breathe out, right? Any more than the tide can just go out. You've also got to breathe in, breathe out carbon dioxide, breathe in oxygen, breathe out, which is giving, breathe in, which is receiving. One of my great friends, Randy Gage, one of today's authorities on prosperity thinking. I listen to his podcast. I read his blog posts. I watch his prosperity TV, because I believe it's very important that we actively, proactively bring in good prosperity thoughts, since we're given so much garbage every day by those around us. But he brings up a great point. If you watch a movie, and from now on, whenever you watch a movie, watch this from now on, especially the biggest selling movies, there are typically two types of characters. There are the good people, who are usually struggling. They're portrayed as poor, but happy, right? They're poor, but happy. But they're always stepped on, stepped over, pushed down, pushed around, bullied by who? The rich people, those evil rich people who are horrible and cowardly, and right, you see this all the time. Look at the messages that we get in these. He talks about the first Spider-Man movie where Peter Parker is talking with his Uncle Ben, and talking to Peter, asking why they're so poor, and Uncle Ben says, well, Peter, we may not be rich, but at least we're honest. What a horrible message that is. Okay. I mean, what's the underlying premise? If you're honest, you're poor. If you're rich, you're dishonest. Now, I think, well, that's just one time. No, you see it all the time. And Randy does a beautiful vignette about these different movies that have so many of these messages in there. Now, there's no conspiracy by movie makers in Hollywood to keep us sick. No, nothing like that. It's just what sells. It's what sells. And so when you watch a movie from now, when you watch a newscast, when you listen to someone talk about evil millionaires, okay, and I'm not being political, I'm just saying, watch it, pay attention to it. Ask yourself the question, why? Why, when you walk past a big home, do you say, oh, I wonder what that person had to do to afford such a big home? Or do you say, I wonder how that person found so many people to serve and add value to in the marketplace in order to have that home? Start checking your premises. And again, start getting books like, Randy's books are wonderful. David Nagel, The Millionaire Within. Bob Proctor, You Were Born Rich. Ellen Rogan, who's a financial advisor in Chicago. I'm trying to think of the name of her book, and I apologize, I'm not. But she works with, she's a financial advisor who specializes in working with women, although the principles work for everyone. But it's basically, the approach is holistic. The approach is mindset. The approach is it, right? And these are the things we need to do. We need to respect the fact that the only way we can make a lot of money is by providing a lot of service to others. And if we provide this service to others, I'm sorry, but we're going to have a lot of money coming in. When I say sorry, I mean, I'm not sorry. I mean, it's great. So start questioning any negative premises, or, any negative thoughts about money and wealth, and just ask why. Why is that true?
Do you think there's more people that struggle with needing to have that prosperity mindset, or is there more people needing to think about giving away, being more giving with their what they're putting out in the world? Or
I think it's both, but there's a big issue with, law number 5, the law of receptivity. Well, I mean, that's the one that brings it all together, right? The key to giving is to stay open to receiving. We hear from more people that was their biggest issue, and that law, the way it was explained, finally gave them permission to receive. Now, we're honored to know that someone would find that kind of value, but we feel badly that it would take something like that to give someone permission to receive. But that's how it is. That is the way of the world. And that's, again, why I say we need to make a proactive choice to study prosperity, because all the other garbage that comes in naturally. You read it, you see it, you hear it, you sense it, you get told it, right? And so yeah, we need to actively, if you're in the healing arts, if you have any product or service that helps another human being, to the degree that you can communicate that value and help those people, that's the degree that you have earned.
I am having a big aha moment about it because, for me as a woman, a lot of times those negative messages are about my looks or my weight or my whatever. And so so I'm very active about making sure I have counteractive messages that I listen to so that I feel beautiful or whatever, because those messages come across. I need to do that. I do that every day. I make that a priority, and I haven't as much with prosperity. I should. There's no reason why I should not. So I know the principle. I just haven't incorporated it that side. I think that's amazing.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I think people in the same way, we find a lot of people who are very loving and very giving that we work with and that we serve, and yet they struggle to love themselves. It's the same kind of thing. They won't allow themselves to have the same kindness that they give other people. And I know that you shared that all these principles are not just about business, that they're about relationships, they're about life, they're about being successful as an individual. And some of our audience that we serve are women that have really been in abusive relationships, or relationships where they have given and given and given and not received that back. And so what would be your advice to them? How do you fit boundaries into being a go-giver?
Okay, well, that's certainly a wonderful question, a very important question. So let's take it from a couple different points. First, let me just share the very basic premise of what being a go-giver is, okay? And then we'll address the actual specific question. A go-giver is simply someone who understands that shifting their focus from getting to giving is not only a more pleasant way of conducting business and living life, it's actually the most financially profitable way as well. Not for some way out there woo-woo type of reason. It actually makes very logical sense. When you're that person who can take your focus off of yourself and place it on others, bringing value to their life, helping them in whatever way they desire to be helped, or solving their problem, or whatever it happens to be, people feel good about you. People want to get to know you. They like you. They trust you. They want to be in relationship with you. And again, this is business. It's personal. It's social. It's related. What have you. So it just, it obviously it makes sense. Now, that said, when we talk about shifting your focus from getting to giving, that should in no way, and I'm talking both business and personally, in no way should being a go-giver ever be confused with being anyone's doormat, or being a martyr, or being self-sacrificial in any way. Absolutely not. If you're in business and someone's trying to take advantage of you and you're continuing to give to them without protecting, your own interest, well, that's just setting yourself up for failure, to be taken advantage of. That's being a martyr. That's not part of being a go-giver. If you're in a physically or emotionally abusive relationship, of course, if you can possibly get out, you get out. You're with a toxic person who has no right to be in your life. If you find yourself being taken advantage of, it's not because you're a giving person. It's because you're doing certain, and I'm talking about a pattern of being taken advantage of. We're all going to, in our life, be taken advantage of at one time or another. That's, but I'm talking about a pattern of such. Then it's not because you're nice or you're kind or you're giving. It's because you're doing things in a certain way that allow you to be taken advantage of. Okay, so yeah, we've got to then understand that that's about us, and that's about coming to grips with, and understanding who we are as a person and what we choose to be as a person. So no, giving, or the focus on creating value for others, it should never just be a one-way street and lead to. In fact, in the story, you might remember that Pindar, the main mentor, was talking with Joe, and Joe asked him how he was able to be so happily married for 50 years, and Pindar said, "Well, because I care more about the happiness of my wife than I do myself." And now Joe, and we made sure to put this in there because we knew people would ask based on political correctness and so forth. We had Joe ask, "Well, wouldn't some call that codependent?" And Pindar said, "Some probably would. You know what I call it?" And Joe said, "Happy." And Pindar said, "Right. But look, let me tell you where that really came from. When I was about probably 11 or 12 years old, I asked my dad, my parents have had a wonderful, wonderful marriage. And I remember asking my dad at that time, when so many of my friends' parents were getting divorced. And I said, "Dad, why, how is it that you and Mom have such a great marriage? And so many of my friends' parents don't." And he said, "Well, he said, I can't speak for them." He said, "But I can just tell you personally that when you really, really love a person, you actually care even more about their happiness than you do your own." He said, "However, you've got to realize that when you're with the right person, they care about more about your happiness than they do your own." And that's where we did the thing about a relationship being 100% instead of 50-50. Now, again, I want to make it clear that when we say caring more about their happiness than about your own, that doesn't mean you're sacrificing. That doesn't mean you're a doormat. That doesn't mean you're being unhappy because they're happy. It means your values are such that you so identify with their happiness, you're actually placing their interest first. So there's nothing about that is negative or codependent. Okay. Yeah. But so it's kind of understanding that, which is key.
Which is the same principle. You've got to make sure you're inhaling as much as you're exhaling.
Absolutely. Right.
And there's nothing wrong with inhaling.
That's right. Oh, exactly. And what happens is when you become that person who's known for those kinds of relationships, again, business, social, what have you, you start attracting more of those people into your life. And, people say, "Well, but what about when you attract the not? Aren't you like less apt to notice?" No, you actually are kind of more aware of it, because so many people are coming into your life who are those other 100%ers, those people who are really looking out for you, that you start to really notice it very easily when someone is coming into your life who isn't that way. And then you handle appropriately.
Well, and I love how it talks about to be mindful of your expectations. What are you expecting to happen in that relationship? Because that's what you'll find. And that was really powerful for me.
Yeah. Well, we always say when dealing with others, and we talk about positive expectation. Well, and if you really expect someone to be, let's say, kind and helpful and what have you, so often they are. And so people say, "Well, so are you saying that when you put that out there and so it changes the other person?" No, it really doesn't change the other person. It changes you. It changes your expectation. So when you walk into that, let's say that city hall bureaucrat who can be very difficult, okay? If you go in there expecting a knockdown, drag out fight, you're going to go in there defensive. And you're going to go, right? But what if instead you just in your mind, you imagine this person's going to be just wonderful and helpful and is going to just go out of their way. And so you go in there, how? With gratitude.
Yes.
And everything about your energy that you're putting out there says gratitude, and you come in with a smile, and you got right. And if they say something that maybe sounds a little bureaucratish, you say, "Oh yeah, well, I understand why that's so important. Thank you for doing such a great job." And all of a sudden they're like melting, because it's like, wow, this person really likes me and appreciates me and respects me. How do you not go out of your way for someone like that? So it's not the positive expectation changes the other person, it's that it changes us. And that's what changes the other person.
Oh, I love that.
I love that too.
I love that too. Here's one more question for you. I feel like as we have worked in our business and tried to figure out what to give people, what is the value people need. I feel like sometimes what we want to give may not necessarily be what other people want to receive. So how do you figure out in business or in relationships what the other person really needs?
Okay, so this is actually everything. And let me explain why. When we talk about the law of value, we have to understand first the difference between price and value. Price is a dollar figure. It's a dollar amount. It's finite. It is what it is. Value, on the other hand, is the relative worth or desirability of a thing, of something, to the end user or beholder. In other words, what is it about this thing, this product, service, concept, idea, what have you, that brings someone so much worth that they will willingly, in this case, let's say, exchange their money for it, okay? But here's what we need to understand. Value is always in the eyes of the beholder. It's not what you or I think is of value or what we think they should think is of value. It's what they believe is of value. So the question then becomes, well, how do we understand that, figure it out? Well, sales, okay, is simply discovering what the other person wants, needs, or desires. In other words, what they find to be of value, and helping them to get it. We can only understand this by asking questions and then listening. And listening with no filter, just listening totally to understand where they're coming from and why and what and what's their belief system and how did they get that and where does that come from and what do they, right? And as we get to understand them with no judgment, just absolutely just understanding what, now we can connect the benefits of what we provide with what they find to be of value.
That's brilliant. We would love to hear what your experience or definition of wholeness is.
Well, I mean, when I think of wholeness, I think of that entirety, who we are in our entirety. And I think of, let's say, happiness. Okay. Now, happiness can have different definitions. There's the dictionary definition, the mental feeling of well-being, which is a good definition. My definition of happiness is an ongoing, or I should say a genuine and ongoing feeling of joy and peace of mind, the result of living congruently with one's values. Okay, when we do that, we're happy. Now, that tends to be, and then we bring wholeness in. We have different aspects of our lives that make up the whole, right? There's financial, physical, spiritual, mental, emotional, social, relational, and you know what? Probably a dozen others that you know that I don't, because that's your specialty. But I think of when we bring these, when we're living congruently with our values in all those different areas, there's happiness because there is that sense of wholeness.
Right.
Well said.
Well, thank you so much. And so we've got the beautiful Go Giver, and you've got a few other books as well. Do you want to tell people about your other books?
Sure. Well, the Go Giver is part of a series. So there's 4 of them. 3 of them are parables. So there's the Go Giver. Then the next one after that is the only one not a parable, and that was Go Givers Sell More, which was more of an application guide for salespeople and entrepreneurs on how to sell the Go Giver way. The next parable was the Go Giver Leader, and then our last one, which is both John's and my favorite of the series, this is the Go Giver Influencer. And if you're an animal lover, you'll really like this one because it's built around a whole animal setting. But anyone who would like to get chapter 1 of any of the books to see if they like them first can go to Burg, BURG.com, and just scroll down to where they see the different books, and you can click on them and get chapter 1. And we also have on the blog a video series. Right now it's on people skills, and there was one before that was on creating endless referrals for your business. So again, people who are in the healing arts and other coaches and other people who just want to be able to do it in a way that they feel very comfortable with the process, can go through. And those are all free resources on the site.
That's
That's great.
fantastic.
That's great.
And is there anything we can do for you? We appreciate your time so much. Is there any way we can serve you?
You can just remain your awesome, wonderful selves and continue to bless everyone with the great work you're doing and helping them. And I just wish you all wonderful continued success.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening. Join the community of knowledge and growth at thewholenessnetwork.com.